Hey everyone! Welcome back to another episode of What If, where we picture a world that we can create together. Thanks so much for tuning in once again. We really appreciate it, and every listen counts. So let's get right into it. Energy is all around us. There's one type that's within us, but a more visible and tangible kind is literally moving with us every day. It's what powers our homes, devices, workspaces, factories, machines, vehicles, labs. I can keep going on. But sadly, the source of constantly flowing energy cannot. To dive a lot more into this, today we are chatting with Chetan Singh Solanki, founder of Energy Swaraj Foundation. And he tells us more about one of the many solutions we have today. Surrender this finite type of energy.
So, if I talk about my journey, so to begin with, I come from a small village, and a really small village. Even today, if there are no buses that goes to my village, so people either have their personal conveyance or walk. So so I feel that is kind of a good positive part of it, because it gave me a different context, and I can see the world in a different way because of that background.
Mm-hmm.
But even being from a small village, my father was highest educated at that time, higher secondary. So he always wanted me to study well. And I was in a school only in my village up to third standard. And in one classroom, all the five classes, it was a primary school. So all the five classes will sit in the room. And half a row for first standard, another half row for second standard, and so on. But then my father sent me to Indore. I studied in a boarding school. After that, he wanted me to become a doctor, but somehow I was not comfortable, and I wanted to be, more like a mathematics and engineering side. So I came into engineering. After engineering, our professor told us that we should also go for higher studies, because some specialization is good. And then Professor Vevare, who was my also kind of a mentor, advisor, he said, no, go for higher studies. And then we all together, the friend circle that I had in the college, we wrote for exams for the master degree. And I was fortunate enough to get it at IIT Bombay. During the third year of my engineering, there was a motivational talk, and the talk was all about that how engineers should actually create jobs rather than taking jobs. And I was very impressed with the talk, and I started dreaming about what can I do for my villages and nearby area. So the idea came to me that I should start a factory. That was in third year of my engineering, and I was still studying, but I was very interested. I did all the search and figured out what machineries are required, how much money is required, and where the money will come and on. So once I went to my father and asked him, for getting a loan, I think it was about 1.25 lakh or 1.5 lakh loan, you have to mortgage your land. And I told my father, sign this paper because I need a loan to start a factory. And he said, he tried to convince me, you are still very young and it's a lot of money. Imagine in 1996, 1.5 lakh was a lot of money. He tried to convince me, but I said, no, I want to do it. And he saw that I'm not kind of listening to him. He really took a kind of danda and beat me up. And that was a very, very kind of heavy beating. So, movies, you see that, signs on the back, almost that kind of beating. So, but that beating was good enough for me to let go the factory dream. I came to college, finished my graduation, joined for master degree, but this idea remained that I should be doing something which is useful for society.
Right.
Then we also kind of went to meet Anna Hazare at that time, also learned what he has been doing, what needs to be done. And then I got a job in one of the company called Texas Instrument. I also tried in the social sector, but I was kind of turned away, saying that I'm overqualified because I was a master from IIT Bombay in microelectronics. So I did not get the job in social sector. Somehow I started working in this company called Texas Instrument. But deep inside, I wanted to do something for the villages. And when I started my job, I realized that whatever I was doing was mainly designing, integrated circuits, the chips that goes into the mobiles and computers.
Acha.
I did not see that directly being useful to my villages. So then I started applying for PhD, and I was fortunate to get a PhD admission in Belgium.
Okay.
With the scholarship. Then I left the job and went for PhD. It was, very kind of stupid decision. How can somebody leave a well-paid job and go for PhD where we are not sure what will happen? But somehow I wanted to do work in solar energy, so that led me to go in for PhD. But one of my kind of apprehension when I went Europe, whether I will be able to come back or not. Because once you go abroad, it's very easy to stick there because you have simple life, easy going life.
Yeah.
So I was always trying to motivate myself, you have to go back and do something there. So I started a counter for myself, and I used to count how many days. So I fixed a date, a kind of a target date, and I started counting back, how many days are left. So that counting was really countdown was really helpful. And as per the plan, I returned back and started working with IIT Bombay.
So that plan worked, having that target worked.
The plan worked very well. But even at IIT Bombay, I was not very happy because what I was doing is I was teaching kids who were coming from well-off area. And still I did not see my work directly being useful for the people community. So I started interacting with some social organization. I started my own social organization. Then we started this solar lamp project. By the way, in 2009-10, the electricity situation was not very good in the country.
Right.
The power supply only for 6 hours, 10 hours. So even those who were going to school were not getting enough power. And there were a lot of subsidy provided in the form of kerosene. And I was wondering, why can't all this subsidy be used for providing solar lamp?
Right.
And I did a little math, and math was very clear that if government of India divert all the subsidy to provide solar lamp, everybody should get at least 2 lamps, 3 lamps. And there were solar lamp projects, but it was all like a social initiative, kind of charity kind of project. That's
only in certain pockets of the country.
Maybe. Was donating something, and Sachin Tendulkar will donate. So it was not really spreading very fast, the speed at which it was required.
Correct.
So that is where I got into that. What can we do to ensure that everybody get a solar lamp? Then we figured out the problem with the solar lamp program that, only, people donate. So which means that until unless there is donor, you can't provide lamp to people. Once it is given to the beneficiary, if there is a problem in the lamp, nobody is there to repair it. Then even if somebody wants to buy, it was not available. So availability, repairability, and affordability. And the solution of all these 3 problems I felt was localize solar energy, solar energy solution, localize it. That let the local community assemble the lamp, let the local community repair, let the local community install, so that all the operational cost reduces, the confidence in the technology increases, repairability improves significantly. This worked very well. This was in 2012. I tried a project about 20,000 solar lamps were provided in just 4 months time. Then I thought we need to take it a bigger scale. So that time I worked with this organization in Madhya Pradesh, but then I thought, let me take it to IIT Bombay. So then I proposed a project where we decided to provide 1 million solar lamp to 1 million students within a year time, with the model of localization where local community will do everything, assemble, sell, repair, maintenance. That was a very big target. 1 million is a big target. And many people kind of dissuaded me, why are you doing, you're a professor, just demonstrate 5,000, 10,000, that should be fine. But I wanted to do this project because, every time you go to anybody, government or even NGOs, they will say, let us do a pilot, They keep doing pilot, and there are pilots and pilots and pilots for 30 years and 40 years. So my idea was that to do a project at a scale where nobody says that, pilot is required. So that is what 1 million project we did. And then idea was to now spread it to all over the country. And then I proposed a bigger project, much bigger project, and as a right to light, that why don't every child who's going to school should have a right to light, and a right to education has been given.
Correct.
But if there is no light, how they can study? So the Right to Light mission was started, and that was around 2014-15. The electricity situation also started improving. Still, we got a project for 7 million solar lamps, and we have trained 10,000 women in various states like Assam, Bihar, Jharkhand, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, and that was also a very successful project. So we not only trained 10,000 women, there were they earned a lot of money. There was a confidence in technology. The willingness to pay for solar increased. The repairability happened. Many women started solar shops. So many learnings came from that project. And in fact, last year, we kind of participated in IEEE. IEEE is an international body. They organized this, empowering billion lives competition. How do we empower billion lives? And I proposed our idea of localization in that competition. And it was a global competition. There are more than 450 teams participating from all over the world. And after several rounds, we were the winner of the competition.
Oh, wow.
And we got a prize money of $100,000. Around that same time, there's another interesting thing that happened. So then I wanted the solar lamps to teach students to make their own solar lamp. And in 2019, we celebrated in India the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. So I thought, why don't we teach students to make their own solar lamp and take a pledge of non-violence to environment. So you can take a pledge that I will study in solar lamp and I will not use the normal electricity, and that will protect the environment. It will be, less violence to the environment. So that was the whole idea. But this has to happen all over the world. It is not only in India.
Of course. Yeah.
I traveled around 30 countries in 2018-19 to promote the whole idea of the solar lamp program for 150th celebration of Mahatma Gandhi's birth anniversary. And that program went very well. Around 9.25 lakh students all over the world took part and made their solar lamp on Gandhiji's birth anniversary, 150th birth anniversary. So it was a very good program. But one of the learning that I got from that my international tour was that everywhere the governments are not fully aware about the climate change. And even if they are aware, whatever they are doing, it's not going to be sufficient.
Definitely.
And second thing is, everywhere government are thinking in the same manner, same policies, same economic growth model. I felt that there is no way with this path you can fulfill the commitment of Paris Agreement. There is no way you can mitigate the climate change through this path. And basically, the magnitude of the problem is so big and so huge that it is not easy to solve it. And governments are always there for a short time, isn't it? Any government.
Yeah.
They will be elected for 4 years and 5 years, and within that they will have limited budget and all. Yeah. They will have different priorities. They would like to win election for the next time also. So they wouldn't do anything which is drastic change from the normal. But as per climate change, the IPCC report, if at all we want to solve this problem of climate change, we need drastic and immediate solution.
Correct.
And drastic and immediate solution cannot be offered by the government. They, by nature, they are slow. Make policies and implement policies. So that is where this idea of energy Swaraj Yatra came. So of energy Swaraj was clear that we need energy Swaraj. We need everybody to generate and fulfill their own energy needs. All my Souls project and our earlier project, it was very clear to do that, and that I felt was the best model. But how do we spread this model? How do encourage people to be independent in terms of energy? How everybody can generate and fulfill their own energy in the manner that is sustainable? How do we do this? And what Gandhiji would have done if he had been alive in these times? So that is where the idea of Energy Swaraj Yatra came, that we need to create some kind of a public movement, because everybody is contributing to the climate change. Everybody who is using energy is a contributor of a climate change.
Yeah.
It means everybody in the world.
Yeah.
And if everybody is contributing for the climate change, everybody must play a role in mitigating also. And everybody means, we need a movement which is, now it should actually go across the globe.
Yeah.
And to do that, of course, it is important to be among the people. It is important to talk to them continuously for long time. 1 to 3 years, you cannot create a movement. So that is why I decided to be in the bus a solar bus, make solar bus as my house, live in solar bus for 11 years, go across and meet as many people as possible. As many means millions and millions of people, so that we adopt to energy independency, we adopt to energy Swaraj, and then there is some chance that we all, if we work together, we can mitigate climate change.
It's really interesting, and you brought up so many interesting points where even the thought, which never occurred to me as a kid because we were never introduced to the concept of creating your own energy. Like, yes, we did learn about energy and where energy comes from, but just that idea of being able to create your energy is so useful that I wish that that's something I had learned when I was growing up. And but knowing that kids can be taught, and this can be made accessible to kids and even a lot of adults in their lives is quite not only useful but much needed in today's education system. So
Definitely. I mean, like we have our own things, like we have our own car, our own house,
mm,
our own refrigerator. Why can't we generate our own electricity? I mean,
yeah,
just one simple concept, and this will change the entire scenario in the world, isn't it?
yeah, correct.
Especially today, when the technology is advanced, it allows us to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So you told us about the yatra that you're on and how you are trying to spread the message of energy Swaraj and being independent in generating and using energy. So far, what kind of response have you seen from the communities, and what have you discovered on the yatra so far?
Yeah, I feel that the response has been very, very overwhelming.
Hmm.
I mean, when I started Yatra, the COVID was still there, subsided, but it was not, gone completely. And then there is a second wave that came in India, which also stalled many things.
Hmm.
But despite all this thing, I would say that when I talk about people to, about the climate change threats, what is happening, how bad it is, and what is the solution required, and solution in the form of, drastic and immediate solution, which I believe is surrendering your electricity connection. Our mission of the Yatra is to bring 10 million people off the grid in urban area.
Hmm.
So those people who are living in an urban area can actually give away their electricity connection and become independent in energy, electricity generation and consumption. When I go around and talk to people, I mean, this is not so weird idea. It doesn't look that weird.
Yeah, it's pretty commonsensical,
Very
right?
common sense, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's very common sense. Only thing is that we are so far away in our
yeah.
thinking and the current life and the subsidies and the use to electricity that
Mm.
stopping moving in the direction and then taking a U-turn is going to take some time. And I feel that this decision that Yatra should be 10, 11 years is really right decision. The moment is so high that to slow down, and pause and come back is going to take some time. But I am very positive that people understand, people are doing it. And right now the campus where I'm sitting in, it's a
Yeah.
25-acre campus, but in 4 months later there will not be any electricity connection here. And there are
Oh,
many organizations who have come forward and pledged to give away their electricity connection. So
that,
I'm very hopeful and positive, and thankfully the response has been great.
that's awesome. Well, that's really good to hear, and that's I feel hopeful as well that there are communities who are agreeing and who can see the change and who are taking action as well to combat that change.
It blows my mind that we as humans depend on finite resources for our infinite wants and keep pushing the natural world to its breaking point. The equation just does not come together. Think about it. Millions of people consume energy that is literally dug out of the earth's belly, day in and day out, non stop, and many millions who go without basic access to any form of energy. So, if you've been hearing about renewable or clean energy a lot more now, don't be surprised because that is our future. It has to be. And it is already in action, come crisis or not.
Something that I wanted to also talk about is, we know that the climate crisis is already here And a lot of the countries or a lot of the politicians back, maybe 20, 30 years back, had the information. They probably did not have the solutions, or they don't have the time, like you said. Or I don't know. There are so many controversial reasons that I don't want to get into, but we know that it is here. And something that I remember while growing up when I was a kid, maybe a little less than 20 years ago, is that when I first heard about climate change, and back then it was called global warming. Then they changed the name to climate. They changed the term to climate change. So when I first heard about global warming, that was through the ozone layer depletion, and that triggered that thought in me that our world has finite resources. We are a species, and a very, very large species, that continues to use these finite resources every single day, which is what got me interested in being kinder to the environment, conserving our resources, being more sustainable in everyday practice. So I wanted to learn from you that in the last 20 years, based on your learning and your experiences, what kind of progress have you seen towards more sustainable development? Has there been a pause? Has there been neglect?
Yeah, so basically, I don't think there is any progress in the last 20 years. In fact, on day-to-day basis, we are still deteriorating every single day. I mean, and the numbers are very clear that the CO2 emission, for example, is still rising. And even after 2015 Paris Agreement, and there have been earlier protocols, Kyoto protocols and all. I don't think the humans are really learning from what is happening, or I don't think many people are really aware how serious the problem is. And many means I believe that 99% people are not aware how serious the problem is. And of the 1% people who understand, 99% of that 1% do not actually do enough and sufficient work.
Right.
So basically, there are very few people who understand and doing sufficient to mitigate. And so the majority population of the world, I guess, do not understand the severity of it. As a result of that, though the understanding of climate change has increased in the last 2 decades, but at the same time, the consumption of the fossil fuels has also increased. The consumption of materials, vehicles, everything is also increased. And the increase of negative factors is much, much more than increase of the positive factors. So therefore, overall, there is a net degradation which is still taking place. And despite all such awareness, despite Paris Agreement, despite all these cyclones and the forest fires and sea level rise and ice melting, everything is happening. But despite all this thing, the CO2 emissions still rising. It tells me at least that I think the world is not understanding. The modern humans, or the 21st century humans, are really not understanding how serious the problem is.
Yeah, that I agree with that. It's something that bothers me every day. It's something that I read about every day, and something as commonsensical as that we cannot keep overusing, extracting, and follow the same capitalistic path that has been created for us. Like it's time we come out of that and create a better system. Sure, we have metrics like GDP and economic policies that have always told us, even as kids, I remember growing up that a country's growth has to be measured by GDP. It has to be measured by how much they produce, how much people earn. When we look at what has happened to the planet, it just does not add up. And for people to not be able to understand that, I'm sorry I'm going on a rant, but for people to not be able to I understand this. Yeah, it's frustrating. But as you said, we have to keep doing the work that we do, and then hope that communities around us follow the same path. So I clearly remember when we first spoke, you had said that, governments come and go. Their period to govern the country or to lead policy changes is very short, 4 or 5 years. And then other group of people will come and they'll try to continue what's happening. But that also means that they cannot solve this crisis by themselves. We cannot entirely, as citizens, depend on the government. So, what that tells me is the generations it will take for us to reverse the damage. So, can you tell us a bit more about this?
So one thing is, it's very, again, I believe that it's very logical that of course, the aim of government is to win next election again, isn't it? They will do everything possible to ensure that happens. And the climate change problem as such is the problem of overdoing things, And with the more science and technology, we are overdoing things. So that understanding is not going in people's head, or for example, forget about people, let the governments, the scientists, because with our increasing science and technology, one simple thing, in every country wants to increase GDP.
Yeah.
Now GDP increase means increase in consumption, and as you said earlier that our planet is fixed, everything is fixed, the size of the planet cannot be increased, the amount of minerals and waters and river and forest cannot be increased. How on earth is it possible that we can keep increasing our production and consumption and our GDP? That is not possible, isn't it? Fundamentally not possible. Which is, Mahatma Gandhi told 100 years back that there's only enough in the world for everybody's need and not for anyone's greed. Not only Mahatma Gandhi, it is always there in the scriptures, that all religion, that there should be a limit on the desires, and that is exactly the same thing. So whether it is a spiritual world, also this message that things are limited and we have to consume in limited manner, it has always been there. But what we are doing with so-called increase in science and technology, we are overdoing things,
Yeah.
So there were 2-lane highways, now there are 3-lane highways and 4-lane highways, and
which means more cars.
Yeah, and that seems to be ever never ending, and it keeps going and going. And there are more and more cars produced, and more consumption is happening. More and more factories are being set up, which actually means that there is an increasing problem. Now, this is so fundamental problem that this cannot be even put together in the form of laws that government makes. For example, everybody should speak truth. It cannot be a law in the government. By a country, it's a way of living. It's our moral conduct, isn't it? So everybody should consume in a limited manner is also should be part of our moral conduct.
I completely agree.
So this cannot be a rule and law, and therefore I believe that the governments cannot do that, because what we are talking is two fundamental things, limiting our consumption.
Yeah.
And in foundation, I say second law, which is again based on Gandhian philosophy, is localizing our production, limiting consumption, localizing production.
Yes.
The first law says that there's only enough in the world for everybody's need, and not for anyone's greed. Or in the another manner, you can say that in an ecosystem of finite resources, there has to be finite consumption. Gandhiji also said that we should not have the mass production, but production by masses. So when production by masses, can we do the energy in this particular manner, generation and production of energy by the masses? Yes, today the technologies are there where everybody can generate and fulfill their own energy on their own rooftop. So production by masses is possible. And whenever we do production by masses, there are many benefits. Then society becomes more equal. In more equal society, will have more peace. More brotherhood will be there. So therefore, these are the two fundamentals, and I believe that this cannot be, part of the policies and the governance. This has to come from inside. And once it starts coming from inside, it will become a movement. And I believe that the problem of climate change is so big that without creating a movement, it cannot be solved.
Yeah.
People have to go beyond economic reasoning. When people have to go beyond policies, people have to do it because it needs to be done. Then only it can be solved. That is my understanding today.
Completely agree. I completely agree with what you said, that it has to come from within. It has to be a moral duty that we nurture, not only for ourselves, but also for the kids of today, because they are the ones who will have to, I don't want to say suffer, but really prepare themselves for what comes next. So only when we start leading by example, it's possible for the next generation to adopt and move ahead, because clearly the generation before us, there was some kind of miscommunication. But
But suffering is the right word. I think we should use it, because that is exactly what is going to happen. People
yeah,
are going to suffer. If there is a cyclone of higher intensity, children do suffer. If there is let's say, unnatural events that are taking place, people are suffering. If there is a change in weather pattern, the suffering may not be visible or quantifiable in a short term, but suffering is what is going to happen.
yeah. What frustrates me is that it's always the people who have done the least who suffer
Yeah,
the most.
exactly.
And that is something that we as society have to realize, that we cannot just sit on top of our wherever, like apartments or houses and offices, and just keep going the way we are going, because there's always going to be a group of people who will not who will have to face what they don't deserve, because of what a large part of the world is doing. And I also like the point that you made about localizing production, and that brought to my mind the concept of globalization. I remember when growing up, globalization was celebrated. Everyone was talking about it, that the world is becoming smaller. We're able to, fly from one place to the other. We're able to eat all these different kinds of foods. American restaurants opening up in India, or Indian restaurants opening up somewhere else. And all of that is great. But in this celebration of the world becoming smaller, we're also forgetting how many resources are being used for something as small as a piece of fruit to come from God knows where to where you are. So, yeah, I completely agree with that point as well. I hope that we start seeing more of that celebration of our local production, local product, produce fruits, vegetables, whatever it may be.
These are fundamentals of living. I call them
Yeah.
laws of existence. In fact, laws of sustainability, the fundamental laws. You cannot violate this law. You cannot centralize the production, because the moment you centralize the production, which also means the globalization in way, the moment you do that, the immediate impact of that is unequal distribution.
Yeah.
Unequal distribution. Only few people are going to consume the resources, but a vast number of people are going to pay for it, in terms of the change and the pollution that happens.
Yeah.
And so that is why the centralization is really not good. And when we do production by masses, and that was the whole idea of Gram Swaraj, that everybody be self-sufficient. If we do that, the coronavirus will not spread. All this problem will not occur.
Yeah.
All the problems associated with the centralization. Look at our cities, Bombay and Delhi, they're choking.
Yeah. They are.
And the rains, Bombay gets stuck in the rains and submerged. And every time there's a winter, the Delhi, smog comes. So many problems are coming, and these are all made by us because we wanted to be centrally, one big city. That's not a really good idea. Modern humans with a very advanced science and technology, they are actually lacking in fundamental understanding of life and
Yeah.
living with the nature, and that's why we are kind of facing all these problems.
Yeah. There's a huge disconnect that has happened in the last few decades with nature. We are just moving away from nature and forgetting that it is what grounds us, it is what makes us human, and it is what sustains us. Hopefully, through this talk, whoever is listening in relates and takes away a little bit of that. Okay, now we're going to come back to you. We're going to talk about your journey a little bit more. So, when you reflect on your journey so far, what are some big wins that you have experienced? If you could give us a few examples. And when I say wins, this is acknowledging that a win does not come without a challenge. I believe that you can win at life, or you can celebrate a win when you have gone through a challenge or you've passed a hurdle. So, if you could share some wins, and what big learnings have emerged from these wins.
First of all, I would say that when I started the Yatra, the basic ideas that I've been talking, that were like not talked so much. And now I have given, couple of hundred talks and met about 20,000 people. One thing has become very clear, that whatever these ideas and ideologies and philosophies that I've been talking, they are solid. I mean, I did not find a single person who would say that we should not decentralize. I did not find a single person who said, no, we should not be independent in terms of energy. No, we should not be looking at the climate change problem. Uh, so therefore, so what I'm saying is, this gave me enormous confidence that the message that I've started my yatra, that I wanted to bring out to people, is a solid message. There is no problem. I mean, there's no loopholes in that message. And therefore, what we need to do now is, after 6 months, is just go full throttle, spread and talk to as many people as possible. So that's a kind of a good feedback mechanism and testing of the whole philosophy and idea of energy Swaraj, which means energy by locals for local, has been there. And I feel more confident now than any time else. Second thing, what I also feel that we need to really create a public movement. And as I told earlier, that more the time go, it becomes very clear that the governments all over the world are not going to be sufficient, and their efforts are not going to be sufficient. So therefore, we need a movement. And I also feel that whatever ingredients that are required to create a public movement, whatever ingredients, the right idea, the right reason for acting, there's a kind of a drive why people should do that, why everybody should do that, why everybody should adopt energy storage, why every country should do that. I think all the ingredients that are required to make such a movement are already there, and that exist for the energy storage. So that's a second great positive confirmation that yes, this can work. Well, in terms of challenges, I mean, funding always remains a challenge, that when you want to grow, of course, you need more resources. But events like Corona comes and then you don't have funds, and sometime you have to borrow it. I don't think that is a challenge. Because I've been doing this kind of work, so I kind of consider this part of life. But there was a time when we kind of ran out of all resources and there was nothing. Somehow we survived and went ahead. Living in a bus is not easy. Every day is a new day. There are different locations, and I keep telling jokingly people that when you people sleep, you sleep in the same plane every day. When I sleep in my bus, every day I sleep in a different plane. Sometimes the bus is tilting on the right side and left side and front side, and so it's not easy to live in a bus. But now I have become quite comfortable, and I can survive next 10 years.
Yeah, it's very inspiring what you're doing. I think only with the right kind of fundamentals of living, knowing that, acknowledging that, having that awareness, the right kind of support also, I'm sure has helped in making this yatra a very pleasant journey. You're on it for the right reason. So thank you for that. So looking ahead, when you look ahead, now that you have a definitive timeline of how long you're going to be on this yatra, what do you envision for yourself and your team as well? And what are you hopeful for? What is the big picture that you're seeing in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, as I said, the big picture for which we are working as a team, and it is also clear that we cannot actually bring that change. It has to be the public in general that will bring the change. I believe that as the time will pass, for the natural reason, for whatever disasters that are happening, like Corona is one such disaster, I would say, it actually builds people towards thinking and philosophy which I have been talking. So in a way, it is. I should not say this, but sometimes I say thanks to Corona, because now people are at least willing to spend minutes and stand there and listen what I'm saying.
Yeah, correct.
So and such this thing will actually improve over a period of time when we start creating more and more solutions and demonstrations. When, for example, our mission is asking people to surrender electricity connection. When one person surrenders electricity connection, let's say in a colony, 100 others will see and watch, and so therefore the effect will not be just a linear; it will be exponential. And I believe that in the next 5-10 years, the energy Swaraj, or this idea of energy independence, will be a matter of pride. That if you do not have electricity connection at home, you would say it very proudly that I don't have it.
Yeah.
Rather than right now where you say, because you're in remote area, you don't have the connection. No, I don't have connection because I choose it to be like that. Because I don't want to be part of the pollution, because I want to be part of the solution. That's why I don't have connection. So that matter of pride, the pride should start coming in people for energy independency. That should start getting into the government machineries. The local government should be independent. Building should be independent. And when that pride starts coming in, then I think it will transit. It will go beyond the economic reasoning. It will go beyond the policy framework,
Yeah.
and then the real change will happen. Then we would feel that yes, it is now part of our life. Solar energy is part of our life, like everything else. Electricity also we generate with the solar energy.
I am optimistic. I want to stay optimistic that that is the kind of future we live in, and we'll live in a future better than what we were born into in the past. So, and my thoughts are with the entire community who's working day and night to make this possible. So now we come to our what if question, and this is really the crux of the show. It helps me personally reimagine a world that we can all create together. So we have all been living in this world with certain sets of rules and laws and ways of doing things, habits that have been nurtured. But I think it is the time and it is the right time to scrap all of that and start thinking of new ways of doing things. And that is what our planet deserves and that is what our planet needs. The question I have today for you is, what if you could choose your top three areas of impact for positive climate action, in addition to energy independence and Swaraj? What would those top three areas be and why?
Okay. Other than the energy storage and energy
Yeah,
transition.
yeah. Energy Swaraj to hona hi hai. We
Yeah.
have to get on that. But if there were other three areas also.
One of the things that I believe that should be there is understanding of who we are, the we as a human we are, and the human life has many dimensions. It's not just making money. We need food, we need happiness, we need friends, we need comfort. So there are many dimensions of human life, and unfortunately, it has been all restricted to one dimension of earning and earning and earning. So a touch of spirituality should be there in everybody's life, and that is what I believe. If it is there, then it will make a great difference in respecting the nature and respecting every living and non-living being. It will automatically happen. And the moment we have the respect for the tree around us, the water around us, the plants around us, the animals around us, I think it will definitely help. First of all, it will not result in a climate change kind of catastrophe, and it will make humans really a part of the nature. Well, that is one thing. Second thing is, what if we kind of regrow the forest again, make it 50-50? So let the 50% land be allocated to other than the humans, and let there be other animals and other ecosystem. And that ecosystem, when it is strong and big enough, it will also kind of help humans to maintain its own ecosystem. So there are so many biological ecosystem within a bigger ecosystem, and if there is a 50% forest, let's say, I think that ecosystem will help to maintain the balance in the on the planet.
Yeah.
Well, other than that, what if our children learn to play with this solar energy from the day one? I mean, what I'm saying is part of the life. It is taught as an engineering or even graduate level subject. That too, not with everyone, if anybody want to study. But the moment I study my alphabets, why can't we teach our children that there is a sun and its source of energy? The moment the child starts growing and go to the second and third standard, their understanding of the energy supply of the planet should get enhanced and enhanced, so that it's part of life. So the educating people that the energy of the planet, how does it flow, and where we take and how much we take, and how do we live within that energy system. If we have such a elaborate learning from the childhood, I think it becomes a natural part of our life.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I always like ending the show and the conversation with this question, and that is about gratitude. Simply, what are you grateful for? It can be anything, anyone, any day, anytime. What makes you grateful every day?
And there are definitely many people, for example, my parents, and if they wouldn't have sent me Indore for education, I wouldn't have really got the opportunity to study, and learn, and then contribute. My wife, for example, now she is managing everything on her own, with the two children, and very positively and bravely she has taken up the challenge. If she wouldn't have agreed for my yatra, I wouldn't have been doing what I'm doing so far.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful to the art of living, Shri Puja Shri Ravi Shankar ji. When I got in touch with the breathing and pranayam techniques, and they are so powerful that really helped me to keep a balance in life, and makes it easy to go through the ups and downs in the life. So these people have added very strong support base, mental level, physical level, learning level. And today, whatever I'm able to do because of these three major support. And of course, in life, because I have been kind of doing social work, there have been numerous number of people who have been coming time to time, contributing in their own ways, surprising me many times. And I sometimes do not expect the help, and then there's help available. I'm very sure that there are more good people in the world than the bad people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the bad people express themselves and they spread their message, but there are more good people in the world. And if every good people also start expressing themselves, I think the world will be a better place.
And that's a wrap on today's episode. We truly, truly hope that you will be taking away a piece of the truth of our climate crisis, but also nurture the hope that we can turn this around. Chetan and his team are already on their journey to make clean energy accessible for all. Find out more about what they do on their channels. You will find all the links in your episode notes. Don't forget to share this episode with your mom, dad, sibling, friend, neighbor, cousin, colleague, aunt, uncle, whoever you think will enjoy listening to this. It's the only way we can grow a community of change thinkers, leaders, and makers. And yes, that includes you as well. We are friendly, so write to us your thoughts, suggestions, and feedback. You can also chat with us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Until we meet again, take care and follow the necessary health precautions to keep yourself and those around you safe.